All right. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. Today, we will be talking about Demo Day Vulnerability Response. And with that, I will pass it over to my co-host, Matt Day.
Good afternoon, good morning, good evening to some. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, I'm Matt Day. I'm the staff product manager here at Kandji, focused on our vulnerability management product. Today, we're going to take you through a quick high-level overview of vulnerability management, where we've come from kind of inception to today, go through a little bit around the reasoning of how we got here, and then I'll kick it back over to Maz, who's going to take us through a demo of our vulnerability management product and vulnerability response. Looking ahead, if we jump into vulnerability management, we started with in February supporting applications and macOS vulnerabilities. So it was a really big launch for us. Really exciting to see feedback from our customers on this product, but we did not want to stop there because we knew the end state and where we wanted to be. And so fast forwarding ahead over the last few months, we've delivered the ability to accept risk, which for some organizations, there may not be the most recent patch available to some, or a CVE might be out there in the wild and it's limited to a small subset of devices. Accepting a risk is a perfectly acceptable way, especially for low and medium severity issues. Next, we brought in a support for S3, which allows for all the events to push for all the detection events, for vulnerability management to push through to S3 and then your SIM provider of choice. And then jumping ahead to vulnerability response, which is why we're gathered here today, is our answer to vulnerability management, which is really the ability to auto-remediate CVEs based on the severity from our auto app catalog. So vulnerability response, just a little bit more about this. So with this product, we're really excited to hear initial feedback from our customers and how they've been able to take advantage of this. Some exciting things, we now have a state of a CVE, which allows you to look at all the remediations across a CVE, both as a percentage of how many devices have been remediated, as well as a top line CVEs. And what this is really at the end of the day is a net new library item in our product. So it uses all the native capabilities within Kandji that we're all accustomed to and allows for really easy implementation. And with essentially a few clicks, you're up and running with a remediation strategy. And so we're closing the gap between the detection and the remediation. As far as when we looked around, when we started on this journey, we saw that there's really a lot out there that gives you visibility and lots of data related to a CVE. But as far as the action plan and how to take care of it, you're left to your own devices. In addition to that, when we look at the tooling, you're really limited and you're asked to use and implement numerous tools. And so what that means for you as an admin is you're now deploying multiple agents. And so what we've made sure to do is continue to have that single agent deployment. And then the last kind of 2 points here, it's what's out there is maybe not native for Apple devices. And so this is putting Apple devices first. And then lastly, because there's tool bloat, the sort of patching capabilities and the detection capabilities are fragmented, it's highly manual, and it could wind up with errors happening. All right, and then just last few slides here on our approach. So the three key elements here for us are related to closing the gap between detection and remediation, the ease of use, and then having the end user in mind. And just one kind of touch point here with end users, these remediations that we have, this patching strategy, can follow your user's local time zone. So you can set this to run the patch at a time that works best within the needs of your business. And why do this? There's a lot of factors, and we all understand there's different pressures within each organization. There's different standards and settings, both from SOC 2, ISO 27001, as well as standards like NIST that really require you to patch vulnerabilities and within certain timelines. And so what this allows you to do is get your time to remediation metric into a really healthy state. We're talking within hours, which is just incredible. So if you have an audit coming up, this is something that can hopefully be your best friend to get you into a place where you can have a little bit less stress going into that experience. think the other thing is just think about how much time you spend. If you were to go into a vulnerability management product and see all the detections out there, now what's next? How do I go about actually making sense of this and working through all the vulnerabilities out there? And so this allows that sort of total slice of the pie to decrease significantly. It's your only focus on the areas that really require the most amount of your time and focus, and then freeing you up to work on more strategic initiatives. And then lastly, this sort of unified approach really simplifies the configuration. So you can go into Kandji, look at your assignment map, and see all the configurations across all of our applications, in addition to vulnerability management. All right. And with that, I'll go ahead and pass it over to Matt, who's going to take us through a demo of vulnerability management, vulnerability response. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. Let me go ahead and pull up my instance and I'll do a screen share and I'll walk us through what vulnerability management looks like overall and how we can go ahead and configure and add the vulnerability response tool. Perfect. Matt, can you just give me a thumbs up? You can see the screen. Perfect. Thank you. All right, everybody. So this is vulnerability management within Kandji. As Matt mentioned, it's a single unified view that you're able to come in. It just sits at the very bottom here. It'll say vulnerabilities. So this is our demo environment showing all vulnerabilities detected across all our devices in our blueprints. We're detecting vulnerabilities based on OS and applications. Starting at the top, you have some filter options here that you can take advantage of. For example, when the vulnerabilities were detected, an application. If I want to maybe look at just Firefox as an example, I can filter that down by operating system type or severity level. Now, the dashboards here are going to show you all severities by severity. And then the remediation status here is what has been remediated by our vulnerability response tool. And I'll show you how to set that up here in a second. But let's take a look at a vulnerability. For example, if I click on this Firefox, I can see what the CVE number is. I can click on the Search National Vulnerability Database to get some additional details from where we're detecting and where we're getting our information. Going back, I can see the devices affected, the blueprints that are associated to those devices, and the versioning of that application. I can click on vulnerable software to get additional details on that software itself. Again, seeing what the device's impacts are, what blueprints are assigned, et cetera, et cetera. If I know this is an application that is being used by, let's say, a developer, and it's a risk that I'm willing to accept, I can accept it indefinitely, or I can put a date until when I'm okay to accept that risk. Beyond that, we have a timeline tab. This will show you when this was first published on the NVD, and if there was any modifications to that CVE within the National Vulnerability Database. And lastly, we show you on the detection date. Great. Now that we've talked about vulnerabilities and what they look like, let's go take a look at the vulnerability response library item and how to set that up. So you would simply go to library here. Keep in mind, this is a fully built demo environment, so there are library items in here. If you are starting a trial, this might be blank. You just click add library item here on the top right corner. There's two ways to find the vulnerability response library item. You can either search for it, or if you go to the endpoint security section here, it is in the vulnerability and response section. So just click add and configure. If you want to give it a name up top, you can do vulnerability test or production, whatever makes the most sense. You can assign it to your blueprint here. And then you have the different severity ratings listed below. From here, you're able to determine what action you're going to select for severities. So as an example, anything in critical, I probably want to enforce that update upon detection. So at the moment Kandji detects it, let's go ahead and resolve that and remediate it. For high severity, I can set it up on a timeline. Maybe I want to do it within 2 days. And I can keep going down that list. Maybe it'll look something like this by the time we're all set and done. So we'll do low severity at 2 weeks. And we'll leave the local time zone set up here and the time we can go to. I know when I was an admin, 7 p.m. after hours was always what we preferred, so we can go ahead and do that as well. Now, if I know, we talked about a developer needing Firefox. If I know Firefox is going to be one of those applications that I want to grant an exception to, I just go ahead and click Add Application, search for the app I want, select it, and hit Done. Now, one of my favorite things with vulnerability response is you do not have to package or do any of the applications to get these updates. This is all based on our auto apps catalog, which sits at about 220 apps today and continues to grow. You do not have to have any of these auto apps deployed to any of your blueprints or configurations. Simply turn this on and we will do the version enforcement for you based on the response settings that you set. And that is vulnerability response. Matt, anything else you want to add?
I think that was excellent. I think you covered, I think the app exceptions is one area, right, where if there are certain things within an assignment map you do not wish to have patched. In this case, Maz has set up Firefox, I think is a really good example. And I think if we just go back to vulnerabilities, we also have this roll up on the homepage now, which shows us our remediation strategy. So yeah, I think with that, we can open it up for any questions from the audience.
Perfect. We have a question from Trey. Can you please demo how Kandji would handle a CVE that does not have an auto app? I'll go ahead and answer that one. So today, it's a good question. If it's not part of our auto apps catalog, what you would have to do is you would have to manually run a custom application to get that updated. Right now, as our vulnerability response stands, it's only going to handle and update any applications within the auto app store. One suggestion is if you're not seeing an application in the auto apps library items, we do accept feature requests and app requests. The best way to do that, let me show you, is just go into the resources section on the bottom left of your Kandji instance, and there's a submit feature request button, and we take auto app requests. And our team does look at these and ingest from these. A lot of the 220 that are out today have been from these requests.
And maybe just to add to that, we have questions coming in. So we'll keep coming and we can always come back to it. So the question is, do you have any plans to update apps which are not in the applications folder for some reason? I think it's definitely something it's under review right now. Currently in the kind of the first iteration of vulnerability response, it's really around making sure we can patch the application. So that's really where the majority of the action is. But that is something we're looking at over time. Definitely not out of the question.
Thank you, Alexi. We'll give it a couple more minutes for any additional questions that come up. Hey, David, what user notification options do you get when you select auto-resolve vulnerabilities? It's a good question, Dave. So the notifications, what the end user sees is actually aligned with what our auto applications do as far as notifications. So they would get the pop-up 5 days before, and that all happens through the agent. They would get that enforcement countdown if they hit the enforcement deadline of the 5 minutes, so on and so forth. So it does still give them that nice end user experience that they would be used to if you've done any of the version enforcement using our auto apps.
Great. Next question from Marcus. How are alerts sent with vulnerabilities and threats for an admin who may not be logged into Kandji when something happens? There's a couple ways we can look at this one. So I would say we're pushing all events through our audit API. And so all vulnerability detections are sent that way. And the central place for this is typically a SIM if you have users that may not have access to Kandji.
Trey, any integrations with patching tools like Automox? We don't have any direct integrations with Automox, but I do know some customers have used and deployed Automox through Kandji to be able to take action using their backend.
Eugene, what rate does our systems connect to NIST to pull the latest CVEs? I feel like if we were talking to you, you would totally understand this question fully. Eugene, would you mind add just a little bit more clarity? We can come back to this one. So typically questions around NIST are related to one of the SLAs, which is like patching CVEs, closing them down within the 30-day window for high severity CVEs. And maybe this is around like how frequently we're updating our data set? Yeah, so we're okay, great. Yeah, okay, awesome. We got there. So if I just talk to myself long enough, we'll get to the answer. No, thank you, Eugene. With that, when we're looking at the MVD, for instance, we're pulling that data down on an hourly basis. We're running hourly scans across your fleet. For what we're seeing, that's been very competitive for us.
Great. While we're waiting for maybe some additional questions, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen one more time. we'd love to hear from you about these sessions. We've been running these demo day sessions. We want to continue providing them. We'd love to hear back from you, your feedback, what you think. If you've been enjoying them, we would love to continue providing, and any maybe suggestions on topics you'd like to see us roll into or talk about in the future. We'd love that as well. If you want to take a moment, scan that QR code. We'd love to hear from you. I'll leave that up there for a second. And Sam just threw that in chat as well. Thank you, Sam. All right. I don't see any other questions. If anything does pop up, please feel free to reach out to us. You can reach out to our support team at support@kandji.io. I'm always happy to take questions, or if you have an instance, the chat bubble is also an option for you. Always a pleasure seeing you all. Thank you for joining our demo day again today, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one. Have a great day, y'all.
Bye.